آله وصحبه وسلم. Thank you all for coming. It's a great joy to be back in Cairo and to be with you. Most of the faces and names are people that we've known sometimes for several years. Tonight we want to begin the first of 5 classes on the heart. And this is material that I have taught before. You may have seen it online. I hope that any repetition that you find will be beneficial. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. I hope that you'll find this richer than presentations that we've had in the past and more beneficial. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. The topic of the heart is extremely important. In fact, we could even say that it is obligatory because of the fact that the heart is everything. And we only succeed by getting our hearts right. And we fail utterly if our hearts go wrong. So for this reason, many scholars have said that it's fard ayn. It is an individual obligation binding on every Muslim to know what makes the heart healthy and to cure it from all things that make it unhealthy. So it's a very important topic. Even some of them said it's fard ayn. It's an individual obligation to travel, if you can find someone who can help you with your heart. That's how important it is. So when we're talking about the heart, we're not talking about something that is peripheral, something that is marginal. We're talking about something that's absolutely central. We'll begin tonight with a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that probably everyone here knows. And this is the hadith where the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Bukhari and Muslim and in other authentic transmissions, Ala wa inna fil jasadi mudghatan idha salahat salaha al-jasadu kulluhu wa idha fasadat فسد الجسد كله ألا وهو القلب. So the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, truly in the body there is a piece of flesh which if it is sound, the whole body is sound, and if it is unsound, the whole body is unsound. Indeed, it is the heart. Everything that we'll say in the next 5 nights will be a commentary on that hadith, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. It's clear from the hadith that the Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talking about the muscular heart, because he refers to it as a piece of flesh that is in the body. So that is the muscular heart. And among the most important things that we'll learn is that the muscular heart is not just everything that we mean when we talk about the heart. And that the spiritual heart, the heart that is filled with light, the heart that receives guidance, it is not identical to the muscular heart, but it is nevertheless in some way rooted in it. So let's begin by talking a little bit about the muscular heart, the mudra. This muscular heart, which many of you probably know much more about than I do. This is the heart that we study in medicine. This is the heart that we look at physically. And it is an amazing organ. So we'll begin by looking at it. But we'll understand from the very beginning that when we're talking about the heart, we're talking about it, but we're talking also about much more than it. The muscular heart belongs to the realm of the mulk. It belongs to the outward kingdom of those things that we perceive by our eyes, our ears, and our other senses. Whereas the heart in general, in the broadest sense, it pertains to the malakut. It pertains to the spiritual realm, the angelic realm. And we'll begin to talk about that tonight, and we'll come back to it later. But these two are miraculously and marvelously interrelated, as the physical and the spiritual in this world are always interrelated. Imam al-Ghazali, may Allah be pleased with him, continually draws our attention to the miraculous nature of ourselves and of our emotions and of everything about us as human beings. And in that, he wants us to wake up to the miracle of existence, the miracle of life, this incredible wonder of being a human being and being so marvelously created. So the muscular heart, which is obviously what this hadith begins with, it is an incredible organ. And this heart is extremely sophisticated. In fact, we're going to say that it's much more sophisticated than people who are materialistic could ever imagine, because it has spiritual dimensions that go beyond the physical heart. But that physical heart itself is absolutely incredible. It beats about 100,000 times a day. Your heart never lets you down. Your heart is beating every day about 100,000 times. It never takes a vacation. It never stops. Of course, if it does, then that's the end, or that's a disaster. So it is one of the most faithful and central of all the organs, and it never stops its work as long as we are alive. The heart pumps every day about 2 gallons of blood a minute. Its average volume is about 2 gallons of blood a minute. I'm an American, so gallons mean something to me. They might not mean much to you. So let's see if I can put that in liters. That doesn't mean much to me. But that's about 8 liters. So about every minute, your heart is pumping 8 liters of blood. It's pumping about 400 liters to 500 liters. That's 100 to 120 gallons for us Americans. We're probably the only ones who still use these measurements. I'm actually proud of that. It pumps about 100 to 120 gallons of blood every hour. 400 to 500 liters of blood every hour. About 2,400 to 3,000 gallons of blood every day. How many liters that is, I don't know, but it's a lot. It's a whole lot. And of course, that blood that precious substance that's going through your whole vascular system, is being pushed through blood vessels and arteries that, if we were able to stretch them out, would go around the earth twice at the center. So all of these blood vessels and arteries and capillaries in your body, they are about 60,000 miles long. So let us wake up to the wonder of the way that we are created. And this is what our heart is doing, keeping us alive, filling us with life. It is so faithful, it is so strong, it is so powerful. It is the center of the human being. And one of the things that we know from medical science is that this muscular heart does have functions that are brain-like. We'll see that the spiritual heart is something very, very special. But even that muscular heart, which is pumping and pumping and pumping and keeping us alive, it has brain-like functions. And in many ways, it is independent of the brain. And it begins to work before the brain works. And sometimes it can even work when the brain is not working. People can be what we call brain dead, but the heart is still beating. There are about 40,000 neurons in the heart. That is nerve cells that send out impulses that are similar to the impulses that is sent out by the brain itself. And these neurons that are in the heart, they communicate with the brain, and the brain communicates with them. So there is a back and forth relationship between the heart and the brain. And we can say then that the heart, the muscular heart, it has its own intelligence. It has its own brain-like functions. And as we said before, it does not necessarily obey the brain. The heart starts beating before the brain is fully developed. And it starts beating before the nervous system is fully developed. The nervous system does not start the heart beating. It doesn't trigger the heart beating. We can say in modern medical science that the heart is self-initiated. It is self-started. So these are all wonders of the physical heart. And it's good to begin with that, since the Prophet ﷺ begins with that himself, talking about this muscle, this piece of flesh, which is absolutely remarkable. And all of you know that if that heart is physically sound, then we will be sound. That's a big part of our physical health. Everyone knows that. But there's much more there than just the physical heart. And therefore, one of the things that we'll be talking about in these lessons is what we could call the super heart, the greater heart, the heart that includes the muscular heart and is in some miraculous way rooted in it, but it also goes beyond it. And of course, the muscular heart is physical. So we can see it, we can touch it, we can hear it, we can perceive it with the senses. But the greater heart, the super heart, is metaphysical. It is above the physical realm. Again, as we said before, the muscular heart belongs to the mulk of God, the lower kingdom. which is, by the way, of course, this world that we're in. But the mulk is the lowest level of reality. While the super heart, the metaphysical heart, that pertains to the malakut. That pertains to the spiritual realm that controls and informs the physical realm. This is our worldview, and it is sound. And we may not be too familiar with it today. And it's important for us to get familiar with it, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. The muscular heart is for you as a physician or a heart surgeon or whatever you may be, if you are specialized in that, to study and to work with and to learn about. It is clinically observable. And of course, we work on it in the clinic. And the nature of the connection between it and the spiritual heart is something that is miraculous, as I've said now several times, but it's something that very few human beings understand. That's what Imam al-Ghazali tells us. In other words, there are human beings who do understand that, but they're not many. It's very rare that we find that. So, all of this picture of the muscular heart and the spiritual heart reflects our holistic, Unitarian worldview, where many things cohere and come together in their different parts to create profound realities. We are not materialists, and materialism is the lowest level of understanding that human beings can have, especially because the mulk itself is the lowest level of reality. So inshallah, we will now talk a little bit more about the geography of the spiritual heart, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We're hoping to sit here for 2 hours. Are you able to do that? Are you able to do that? You're not millennials, right? We love millennials, but we live in an age where people, their average attention span is what, 3 minutes? And we're going to sit here for 2 hours? But this is knowledge, and this is knowledge which is very important, and it is being recorded. It's also being presented live, but it's also being recorded, and therefore we can review it, and it's very important to try to learn it, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, because this is what enables you to learn how to work with your heart and to understand your heart, and you'll learn certain marvels about your heart as we go through this, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So we'll go back to the blessed hadith of the Prophet. ألا وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهو القلب. Truly, in the body there is a piece of flesh, there is a muscle, a muscular organ, which if it is sound, the whole body is sound. The whole being of the human being is sound. And if it is unsound, the whole body is unsound. The whole being of the human being is unsound. Truly, it is the heart. Indeed, it is the heart. Allah says in the Quran, these are the words of Abraham, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. So this is the verse that you know from Surah Ash-Shu'ara, the poets. which is 26, 87, 89. And Abraham says here, he says, do not humiliate me, and do not abase me, do not humiliate me, O God, on the day when people are raised up from the dead, the day of resurrection. That is the day of honor, and that is the day of humiliation, and that is our fourth life. We have how many lives? 5. We had a life before this world. That was in the Malakut, that was the spiritual realm. And part of that was the great witnessing that you bore and I bore. Alastu bi rabbikum, God said. Am I not your Lord? And according to Ibn Abbas and other sound transmissions, we were like spirit beings, and we were all brought forth on the plain of Arafat, out of the loins of our blessed father Adam, and God manifested himself to us, and he spoke to us, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? What does a Lord do? A Lord commands and prohibits. A Lord also guides and gives spiritual development. So this means that, am I not the one who will give you taklif? So this is a khitab, this is a discourse about taklif. We did not have taklif before. For those eons and eons that we were in that malakuti realm, where inshallah we knew each other. Al-arwahu junudun mujannada. The spirits of human beings in the Sahih Hadith are soldiers marshaled in many ranks. There are many armies, male and female. Arwahun mujannada. فَمَا تَعَارَفَ مِنْهَا ائْتَلَفَ. Those who recognize each other, they become friendly. They have ulfa. They have ulfa. They like each other. And hopefully we're all like that. We all recognize each other because we knew each other in that world. وَمَا تَنَاكَرَ مِنْهَا اِخْتَلَفَ. And those who don't recognize each other because they belong to another army, they don't get along. They don't get along. So that was our first life, and that life is extremely important. And that life is what constitutes our identity and gives us this treasury of knowledge, which is called what? The heart. Because the heart is a khazana. It is a treasure chest filled with knowledge. Your heart is like that. But do you have the keys to it? Are you open? Are you able to open it? In order to do that, we have to purify it. And we have to purify ourselves. And we have to be worthy. And then we have the second life. And that's this one right here. And it begins in the wombs of our blessed mothers. And it ends in the grave. Most people, that's where they go. Some people don't go to graves. They may drown at sea. They may be burned in fire. May God protect us from all these things. But this life ends, of course, with physical death. And that's the end. And then we go to world number 3. Which we call what? The barzakh. The barzakh. The intermediate world. It's number 3 between 5. So it's the intermediate world, and that's the world of the grave. The world of the dead. But nobody is dead in the world of the dead. That's consensus of all Muslim scholars. The soul never dies. The spirit never dies. And in that world it is either rewarded, may our life in that world be reward, or it is punished. And its punishment might be purification, and its punishment might be punishment that never ends. But we live, and that's a spirit world, that's a malakuti world. It is real, absolutely real. And it's the intermediate world. And then we have Yawma Yub'athun, the day when we are resurrected. And that's life number 4. Life number 4. And we will be reconstituted as beautiful human beings if we were beautiful, and as not so beautiful human beings if we were ugly. In English, our word ugly actually means the same thing as the Arabic word shaqi, wretched, wretched, cursed. We talk about ugly deeds because they're cursed deeds. So this is all about what? The heart. If your heart is beautiful, in the next world you will be beautiful beyond words. And there are no old women in the garden, are there? Do you remember the old woman who came up to the Prophet ﷺ, and he told her there are no old women in the garden, and she started to cry? And of course he's teaching her and teaching us through her that in the garden you won't be an old woman. You'll be a young, beautiful woman. Just as we will all be, hopefully, young, beautiful men, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. That's the way we will be if our hearts are good, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So that's the 4th world. And then after that we have the 5th world, which is the world that comes after judgment. And that is, of course, the garden and the fire, which are absolutely true realities. And they have profound cosmic meaning. So Abraham says, do not abase me, God. Do not humiliate me on that day, the day when we are resurrected from the dead. On the day when wealth and children are of no benefit, except for the one who comes back to God with qalbun salim, biqalbin salim, except for the one who comes back to God with a sound heart. And for that one, wealth and children will be beneficial, because you used your wealth properly, and also you raised your children properly. So great good will come from that. Now here, the heart that's being talked about is more general than the muscular heart. And it is that super heart. It is that metaphysical heart that we referred to before. Allah says in Surah Qaf, which is 50, verses 32 to 33, هَذَا مَا تُوعَدُونَ لِكُلِّ أَوَّابٍ حَفِيظٍ مَنْ خَشِيَ الرَّحْمَنَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَجَاءَ بِقَلْبٍ مُنِيبٍ. So Allah says that it will be said, here is everything you were promised. Meaning, here is everything you were promised in the world, the garden. All of these things you heard about, all these things you believed in, here they are. They're true. Absolutely true. Absolutely real. Here is everything you were promised in this world. It is for everyone who turns back to God again and again. Awab. The awab is the one who's always reorienting himself back to God. Who turns back to God and heeds the limits that God has set down. Hafiz. Hafiz means the one who holds to the limits that God has set down, lives according to the ordinances of prophetic law. Those who fear the all-merciful in the unseen. It's very beautiful language, and if we were doing tafsir, we could talk about it at great length. That you fear the Rahman, He's the most merciful, the all-merciful, the universally merciful. But these are the ones who do fear Him. And only those fear God who know God. And they fear Him in His majesty, but they also fear Him in their beauty because they know Him and they love Him and they have knowledge of themselves and they know how far they fall short, no matter how well they do. Those who fear the most merciful in the unseen, may we be people like that. What is ihsan? That you worship God as if you could see Him. For although you do not see Him, He sees you. And when we have that gift, then we fear Him in the unseen. Also, unseen can mean in private or in secret, when people are not watching. And the sign of sidq. Sidq is the truthfulness, which is one of the highest spiritual levels of all, is when your inside is the same as your outside. What you show to people is what's also in here. In fact, maybe what's in here is better. And when our private lives, hidden away from view, are better than our public lives, or at least they're similar, they don't contradict. And this is for those who come back to their Lord with a remorseful heart. Qalbin munib, a heart that is remorseful, a heart that is always repentant. May Allah make us that way. And again, here we're seeing that the heart is much more than just the physical heart. It is not just the physical heart, it's also the metaphysical heart, the super heart, the spiritual heart. So the heart then is extremely important. And when we look at this world around us and all of the good that is in it, like the good of yourselves and the good of these families, then what does that tell us? It tells us about their hearts. This is their hearts manifest. This is what their hearts produce. This is what your heart produces. And when we look at all the evil in the world, death, destruction, murder, and these horrible things that you know about and you hear about in the news, what is that telling us about? The hearts that are hard, the hearts that are dead, the hearts that are accursed, because that's their work. That's what they produce. So everything is about the heart. There is no well-being like the well-being of the heart. There is no depravity like the depravity of the heart. We want najah, we want falah, we want success, right? But that success is success of what? The heart. And of course, you will do things. You will pray, you will fast, you will give in charity, you will do wonderful things, you will build things, you will help people. But all of that is meaningless unless it comes out of a heart that is sound. A hypocrite can also do amazing things. Inna Allah la yansuru hadha Deen bil rajul al-fajr. That God sometimes aids this religion with a corrupt man. The Prophet taught us that. So what reward does he get? Maybe none. Maybe it's all taken away. But what is that about? It's about the heart, right? We want to get the heart right. And our success, our najah, our falah, it is ultimately the najat of the heart. It is the success of the heart. Human loss, on the other hand, and the worst human loss is eternal loss that never ends. You know, that is the loss of what? The heart also. And what is it that is punished most in the fire? The heart, the fu'ad. That the flames reach the fu'ad. They come to the very substance of the heart. That's the most painful part of it all. It is the heart that is the crux of obedience. It is the heart that Allah addresses when He addresses you. Will you believe in me? Will you follow me? Will you submit? And it is the heart that is filled with light, not just life. And it is the heart that fills your body with life as it pumps these gallons and gallons of blood every minute, every hour, every day through your body. But at the same time, it fills your body with light, because this is one of the gifts that it has. And it is the heart that moves us to pray. And if I don't want to pray, if I'm lazy, or if I can't find presence, then what's the problem? It's a problem of the heart. That's what it's about. It is the sick heart that is the crux of disobedience. It is the sick heart that cannot pray, that cannot give, that cannot do the right things. It is the sick heart which is the crux of rebellion and destruction. In the last century, the 20th century, we had a lot of really powerful men, right? Ataturk, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Franco, Mao Zedong. We can even mention Churchill and Roosevelt. Were they good people? Were they good people? Most of them are really tough people. And a lot of them are people who brought about changes that no one else would have ever dared to do. Especially if we look at people like Ataturk, or we look at people like Joseph Stalin. How many people did Joseph Stalin have put to death? Millions and millions. How many people did he move? You know, from one region to another. He depopulated whole areas of the Soviet Union. And he moved the people to Siberia. He moved the people to other places. And he cared nothing about that suffering. These are people who were very strong, but generally speaking, very cruel, very tyrannical, and their hearts were hard. And God willed that to test us. He willed to do that to create the scenarios of the 20th century that would lead to these different events that have developed in the 20th and the 21st century. All that's about the heart. All that's about the heart. The success of the heart in some cases. There were also great people. And the failure of the heart in other cases. Evil things that our bodies do are prompted by what? The heart. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لا يستقيم إيمان عبد حتى يستقيم قلبه. So the Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, The faith of a servant of God is never right. It is never upright. It is never the way it ought to be, straight, unless his heart, or until his heart is straight, until his heart is upright. And we ask God to make us good servants, upright servants. We ask God to make us people who have absolute obedience, selfless obedience, love of God. But that's only possible if the heart is that way. And once the heart is that way, then actually that's not so difficult. The heart is the difficult task. Getting the heart right. And then the other things will come about quite naturally. لا نجاة كنجاة القلب إذ كل جارح له ملبي. So there is no success like the success of the heart, because all the parts of the body respond to it. Your hands, your eyes, your tongue, your ears, everything about you, they are all responses to the heart. And again, if the heart is good, they will be good. If the heart is right, everything else is right. If the heart is wrong, everything else is wrong. If the heart is healed, then everything else is healed. If the heart is sick, then everything else is sick. The heart is what fills you with light. The heart is that which is maqbool. It is that which is accepted in God's sight. And God looks to our hearts, as the hadith said. Right? He doesn't look to our outward forms. Of course, He knows and sees and hears the reality of our outward selves. But God looks at your heart, because that's the essential you. That is the central you. That is the center. And that is where everything is evaluated. That's how we know how good you are. And the Prophet told us about his Sahaba, Ridwanullahi alayhim, that if any of us were to give the whole mountain of Uhud in charity, and you've seen Uhud, most of you have been to Medina, you've seen that incredibly beautiful and huge mountain. But if we were to give all of that in gold, it would not equal a single date that was given by a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what's that about? Hearts. Because their hearts were the best hearts that ever were. Their hearts were absolutely pure. Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, may Allah be pleased with him. He is one of the great masters of the 2nd century of the Hijrah, the 8th century of the Common Era. Many of you know his story. He was a robber, but he was a Robin Hood type robber. I mean, and he was good, he was noble, he did bad things. And then all of a sudden he heard, isn't it about time that you did Tawbah? And he did, and he changed. And he became an ayah in his time. He became so good. And he became a person who truly knew God and loved God. And he was courageous. He was courageous. He was valiant. And so he was also courageous and valiant on his spiritual path. But he said that none of those men and women that attained the knowledge of God and the love of God attained that just on the basis of lots of prayer and fasting. They did pray, they did fast, but that wasn't the secret. What was the secret? And he gives us 3 things. He said, no, 3 things. Sakha'un nafs, overflowing generosity of the soul. They gave of their souls. And it's much more difficult to give of your soul than it is to give of your money. It's easy to buy our children toys, and we can fill our houses with toys if we have the money. But what about giving our children our time? What about giving them love? What about sitting with them and listening to them? What about listening to our neighbors, our brothers and sisters? Sakha'un nafs is what really counts. And of course the sakha that we have with the deeds we do, the money that we give, that's incredible. That's also a very great act of worship. But that's relatively easy compared to giving of ourselves. Giving of the self. So he said, sakha'un nafs. And salamatu sadr, the soundness of the chest. And you could call that the soundness of the heart, because the heart is the most important organ that is there in the chest. So it doesn't have in it hatred. It doesn't have in it bitterness. It doesn't have in it a desire for revenge, even though it may have been wronged. But it's able to forgive. It's able to do good. It doesn't have in it other sicknesses like hypocrisy or show, ostentation. Salamatu sadr. When we ask Allah to give us that, let our hearts be salim. Let our hearts be pure and good. And number 3 was an-nushu lil ummah. Give sincere advice to the ummah, which means give it to each other. This is the ummah right here. Give it to each other. Give it to different parts of our ummah. Care about this ummah. And try to do whatever you can for this ummah to bring it to life and to make it sound and to enable it to wake up to its task, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. The heart then is what is maqbool. It is what is accepted by God. He accepts your heart, and then He will accept everything else. The ancient Egyptians, what would they do when they talk about the world of the dead, the book of the dead? What is the thing which is going to be weighed there? Right? Their heart. The heart. That's everything. That's everything. And it is the heart which is rejected as well. That the heart might be a proud, arrogant heart, a hypocritical heart. And this is why we want to know ourselves. We want to get ourselves right, because the ego is able to play 1,000 tricks, and we need each other's help in order to get the better of the ego, so that the heart is actually sound. You want to be happy, and may you be filled with happiness. But where is that happiness from? Where does that happiness take place? The heart. And we don't want to be depressed. And some of us get so depressed that we're almost suicidal. In fact, in this day and time, ironically, some Muslims are suicidal. That's very unfortunate. And may that not continue to be the case. But what's it about? The heart. It is the heart that goes into these contractions that create this kind of severe depression that makes us unable to move, makes us unable to get out of bed, makes us unable to breathe. Have you ever watched a depressed person? Do they breathe? They don't breathe. They breathe tiny little breaths. I remember a man who came up to me in Chicago, and he had a problem with depression. He had a very good business, but then he would go into depression, and his depression almost ruined his business. And he came up to me one day and he said, I'm depressed again. I can't do anything about it. And I said, breathe. Because he's not breathing. I said, breathe. He couldn't do it. Breathe. Just breathe in and breathe out. And it was so hard for him to do that. That's part of the cure. Your life is measured. Is it measured by minutes? Is it measured by Greenwich Mean Time? No, it's measured by what? Breaths. Breaths. And the breath, the nafas, is breathe in and breathe out. And so, may you live a long life. I'd like to live a long life. Pray for me. Of course, being healthy and serving Allah. Okay, but so, breathe. Breathe in and breathe out. And if I'm breathing short little breaths, it's like the clock just sped up. You just lived a whole week. Breathe in, breathe out. But the happiness is in the heart. The sadness is in the heart. The depression is in the heart. And the cure of that depression is also in the heart. It's all about the heart. The heart is what brings us incredible abilities. Incredible abilities if we purify it and if we pay attention to it. Do you listen to your nervous system? But you can. Most of us don't. We live outside of our bodies. We live in a world of fears and anxieties and expectations and maybe illusions and delusions. We live in a world that doesn't exist. That's not very good. We have to be in ourselves, where your heart is. This mudra, this muscular heart, is what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about, but it's a physical heart that has a metaphysical dimension. But you've got to be in that physical heart too. You've got to be in that physical body. You've got to pay attention, to your nervous system. People will say, I feel so sad today. Okay, so what's going on in your body? And they say, what do you mean? I mean, so what do you feel in your body? And they can't answer. It's like, they're talking about some kind of abstraction of sadness or depression or whatever. But pay attention to your nervous system. Is there anything happening in there? Is your stomach tight? Are you not breathing? Is your heart contracted? And the more that we get into our physical selves, the more grounded we become and the more healthy we become. And then abilities come out of that also. Incredible abilities. And all of that pertains to the heart and the purification of the heart. The godless heart has no light. And that's the greatest deprivation of all. And when you have light, then you can understand. And you increase your light by purifying your heart, breaking the idols within your heart. Those are the worst idols of all, the idols of the heart. Some people have the idol of a attack dog in their hearts, a vicious dog. And what is that? The person who is dominated by anger. And that anger is like the idol of a dog in their heart, except it's not a nice dog. It's an attack dog. It's a vicious dog. And we want to break that idol. And some people have in their hearts the idol of a pig. You don't want that in your heart. You don't have that in your heart. But I don't want that in my heart. And what is the idol of the pig? Passion. that cannot be disobeyed. I cannot hold myself back. I've got to do this. And a lot of times we do it unconsciously. Right? Like we know we shouldn't do this thing. We shouldn't look at this. We shouldn't listen to this. We shouldn't eat this. We shouldn't drink this. But we go into some kind of unconscious mode where we just do it as if we didn't have intellect. Okay, that's the idol of the pig. That's the idol of the pig, so it's good to smash it. And there are also other idols. But whenever we find an idol in our heart, we want to smash it. And we don't want anything in our heart but God. Purify your heart. There are two kinds of lights that come to the heart. They're anwar al-wusul wa anwar al-dukhul. There are lights of arrival. They're lights that come up to the heart. They get there. And they're what enable us to understand. They are what enable us to believe. They are what enable us to pray. They are what enable us to fast. Okay? But they come up to the heart, but they don't necessarily go in. And then you have anwar al-dukhul. And those are the lights that go into your heart and hopefully don't ever come out. But they're like little birds. And I know that in the daytime they have lots of beautiful birds around here, especially hudhuds. I love hudhuds. I love the hudhud. They have lots of hudhuds around here. I hope I'll see some. But the bird, let's say you have a feeder. Will it come to the feeder if they're cats? Or maybe even hawks? Or dogs? Or you? The place has to be relatively empty. And then they'll come. And then they'll eat. So the anwar al-dukhul, they are like that too. They come to your heart. And then they look to see, is there anything inside? Oh, there's an idol of a dog. Oh, there's an idol of a pig. Oh, there's an idol of this or that. So they won't come in. But once those idols are broken, and you turn them into smithereens, and you sweep them out of your heart, then your heart is at peace. And then your heart grows, and then these lights come in, and then incredible things happen to you. This is what you were created for. And then you become the real you. And the dark heart is the sick heart. And that heart can get darker and darker until it dies. We say it dies, although it doesn't necessarily ever die for real. And I probably told you the story. I hope you don't mind if I tell it again. This happened back in the 1970s. A lot of you weren't even born then. But I was at the University of Michigan, and we had a woman. I was a young professor, but my wife was in school, so we lived in the student housing, the graduate housing. And there was a woman who lived there who was a feminist, and she was a lawyer, and she was divorced, and she had a little boy. And she was an atheist, big time. And you couldn't get a word in edgewise. And she's talking always about how horrible religion is. And the belief in God and so forth. And somehow, for some reason, we liked her. Not just me and my family, but other people. And we would talk with her. She was actually interesting to talk to. She's always ready for a fight. And then one day, it was a spring day, and we were out in an area, and there were cars parked on the street on both sides, and her little boy, who was about 3 years old, he began to go towards the car, and she wasn't paying any attention. And then he goes between the cars, and there's another car speeding down the street. And then she sees that. And what did she say? Oh my God! Oh my God! That's what she said. It's like, you just blew it. You know? And what is that? That is the human heart speaking. And what has opened it for that second is extreme fear that my boy is going to be killed. And another thing that can open it is extreme love, extreme joy. These are things that can open the heart. And it's very important for us to understand about that too. That how do you open the heart? And how can you put light in it? And what do you think happened to the boy? Because Allah says that whoever calls upon Him in dire need, He will respond to. And she is muttarra. And that's what she's doing. She's doing istighatha. Oh God, it's a natural, unconscious response of her fitra, of her natural self. Oh my God, save my boy. That's what she means, right? Don't let this happen. Don't let me see this. And the car saw the boy, and it slammed on the brakes, and the dust came up, and the car swerved, and it just missed the boy by a nick of a hair. And he came running back to his mother, crying. Okay? So there we see that the heart, sometimes we say it's dead, but it's not really dead. It is covered over. And this means also that often there's something there, even in that heart, that might be redeemed, that might be brought back, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. When the Quran speaks of the dead among us, then what is it talking about? أَفَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ, is the one who was dead and we gave him life. أَفَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ, is the one who was dead and we gave him life, and we gave him light that he could walk with among human beings, like the one who مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ, whose likeness remains in the different shades of darkness. Okay, so what kind of death was that? The death of the heart. And who was that verse talking about? Umar ibn al-Khattab al-Faruq, because he was dead. He didn't believe. His heart was dead. And you know that he set out to end this problem for good. That I will just dispense of the best of mankind, and Quraysh's problem will be solved. They'll kill me, but it's worth it. His heart was dead. But the Prophet ﷺ had prayed, "O God, strengthen this religion by one of the two Umars, either Ibn al-Khattab or Abu Jahl." And Allah chose Umar. And as you know, in that worst of moments, which is the pit of his life, then God gave him light through his sister. What was his sister's name? Fatima. Quraysh had lots of women named Fatima. And she is reciting the Quran with her husband, Surah Taha. And you know the story. And then he says, "I want to listen to that." And Fatima said, "You're unclean. Go do ghusl." And he did. And then he came back, and they recited, and then he said, "Take me to the Prophet ﷺ." And of course he's then told by their teacher that the Prophet said, "God strengthened this religion by one of the Umars. Maybe it will be you." And then he goes with his weapons to Darul Uloom. And they look out the door, and oh my God, Umar was big. Al-Abbas was big. Hamza was big. He was strong. You know, Umar had the strength of 30 men. Khalid ibn al-Walid was like that too. There's some women who have the strength of 40 men. There are women who are like that. I know women like that. Okay? But Umar, he's there and they say, it's Umar, and he's got weapons on. And Hamza said, radiallahu anhu, if he came with a good intention, then good. If he came with a bad intention, I will take care of that. Hamza is the Asad, right? He's also big, he's also strong, he's also courageous. And then Umar comes in, the Prophet comes up and embraces him, and then Islam has victory, big time. And the first thing that Umar does is to go to Abu Jahl and knock on his door. And Abu Jahl comes to his door and he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is bad news. This is bad news. And then when Umar is going to make hijrah, you know, most of the people making hijrah, they're very quiet, they're very silent, they sneak off in the night. And he gets on his camel and he goes around the Kaaba. And, any of you want to make your wives a widow? You want to make your mother cry over her dead son? You want to do this or that? Meet me outside. You know, I'm going to Medina. And then of course lots of the weak and the poor, they come, they flock to Umar. And so he doesn't hide, he just goes to Medina. And he's got lots of people with him. Umar had a heart, a big heart. And this is what we know about him. He's tough, but not in his heart. Who is the biggest tyrant of all? The coward. The coward. Have you ever known that in your life? I know people that are horrible. And you'd think they're really tough. They're not. They're cowards. They behave like tyrants, but they're actually cowards. And their hearts are hard. They might be soft on the outside, you know, but their hearts are hard. And Umar was tough on the outside, but his heart was very beautiful and very soft. And God strengthened this religion by him. And Imam Ali loved Umar with a love that is beyond description. We know this absolutely. And Imam Ali married his daughter Kulthum to Umar. And he named Imam Ali 2 of his sons Umar. Do you know anybody in history that did that? He has Umar al-Akbar, Umar al-Asghar, both of whom were martyred at Karbala. And the name Umar is very common in Ahlul Bayt because they loved Umar. They're related to him by blood, but they also loved him. In the days of the conquest of Persia, when Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas conquered the city of, you know that city, Ctesiphon, right? Have you ever been to Ctesiphon? But we call it Madain in Arabic. Madain. In English we call it Ctesiphon. CT, it's one of those unpronounceable, like, oh my God, you know, Ctesiphon. But Ctesiphon is one of those Persian outposts in Iraq. And when Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas conquered Madain, then he gets the first of the Persian treasures. Because the Persians were very wealthy, extremely wealthy, more than the Romans, more than the Byzantines. That's because they control this Central Asian trade. They trade with China, they trade with India, they trade with Central Asia, with Anatolia. They're very wealthy. And all this wealth is then sent to Medina. And the wealth comes to Medina, and where are they going to put it? They don't have a treasury, they don't have a bank. So of course they put it in the mosque. And then at night, Imam Ali and Umar, they go to the mosque and they're just looking at this wealth. And they're going through it. And they're picking it up with their hands. And they're seeing that, look at this little ring. Look at this little earring. Look at this little necklace. If they had wanted to steal this, they could have. But that means nobody stole anything from this treasure. And so Umar said, Inna qawman addu mithla hadha la umana. That verily a people that have given us, delivered to us, the likes of this, are trustworthy people. He's talking about Sa'd. And Sa'd is Amin. And he's talking about all of the Sahaba who are with Sa'd. And all of the believers who are with Sa'd. That these are trustworthy people. What does Imam Ali say? لقد عففت فعفوا ولو رتعت لرتعوا. He says, you, Umar, were afif. You, Umar, were chaste. You didn't take a thing. You know, you are the perfect ruler. You are the good ruler. You were afif, so they were afif. وَلَوْ رَتَعْتَ, and had you grazed, taken a little bit here, a little bit there, a bribe here, a bribe there, لَرَتَعُوا, they would have also grazed. What incredible people. What incredible words. And also, we're talking about what? Hearts. The hearts of these incredible people. So, is the one who is dead, and we gave him life, and gave him a light to walk among humankind, like the one whose likeness remains in the pits of darkness? That's Umar. That's Umar. That's what that verse is about, Umar. And the other one is Abu Jahl. And of course you can think of lots of examples. Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad is an example of that, whom we talked about before. Al-Hajj Malik, Shahbaz, Malcolm X, he's an example of that too. God gave Malcolm life. And God gave Malcolm incredible light and intelligence that cannot be measured. Although he lived a very short life before he was shot down. But he was a light that walked among our people. I came to Islam through Malcolm, and many others came to Islam through Malcolm. So I owe my Islam to him. These are all people that were dead and he gave life. I was also one like that, who was dead and he gave life. And the death here is the death of what? The death of the heart. So when God talks about the dead in the Quran, in this sense, then he's talking about people whose hearts are dead. And of course when Allah talks about the hypocrite, then he's talking about one whose heart is diseased. And you know the verses that pertain to that. May Allah remove from our hearts all diseases and give us healthy heart. And the dark heart is mahjub. The dark heart is veiled from God. And that's because it is immersed in other than God. And your heart is a lover. Your heart is created to love. And your heart is created to love infinitely and absolutely. Right? So what should it love? God. It's created to know God. It's created to give everything to God. And to love to do that. And to do that absolutely. And when we don't do that, then we will set up idols in our hearts. And we will love them. And those idols might be so many things. You could think of 1,000. Might be a certain type of a car. It might be a certain career. It might be clothes. It might be a big house. It might be, you can think of so many things. And we love these things with the love of God. And that's not right. And that doesn't make us healthy either. Nor does it make us happy. I remember people in my own family, you know, that were always talking about someday we will build our dream house. That's what they talked about for like 20 years. We'll have our dream house someday. And in this particular family, they finally did build their dream house. And, you know, they designed it, they got the builder to build it, they built it on a beautiful hill, overlooking a stream, overlooking fields in a forest. It was beautiful. Were they happy? No. Never happy. They were never happy. It was almost as if the house was cursed. But the way I see it is that you weren't made to be happy with this. This could not. All these years, you have attached yourself to this idea of your dream house. And you saved your money for this, and you worked for this, and now you built it. And you find yourself completely empty and unhappy. And that's because this heart is created to love God. And we will substitute for God other things like our passions, our angers, our wealth, our careers, but that never works because that is finite and limited and not real. So the heart is like that. And the heart that is dark is mahjoob, it is veiled. And it's veiled by these things that it attaches to. We have to be really careful about that. And it's very difficult to detach, isn't it? It's very difficult to do that. This is one of the reasons why our acts of worship are so absolutely incredible. We say that every act of worship has a dye. It has a color that it dyes you with, so that you take on many beautiful colors. You become really splendid in your religious life. You get the dye that comes from praying your 5 prayers. You get the dye that comes from praying additional prayers, if you do them. You get another dye if you were to get up at night to pray. You get another dye if you pray Eid. You get another type of dye if you pray Taraweeh. They all have a special spiritual gift to constitute you, to color you in a special way. To lawinuk, we say, with talween. And then fasting. Fasting is totally different, isn't it? And fasting does enable us to detach. And fasting does give us self-esteem. I remember when I first became a Muslim, 1970. And Ramadan is coming. And my whole life, I have never gone all day without eating and drinking. And I don't think I can do it. I was worried. And, I ate a lot before I started to fast. And it's like, this is not easy. This is difficult. But I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to drink. And then by the end of the day, I did it. And the second day is easier. And the third day is easier. And then by the end of the week, it's like, I'm a pro. I'm a pro. You're a pro. Isn't that amazing? And, the feeling you have about yourself, the self-respect that I fasted. I went the whole day without drinking and eating. That's incredible. So that builds in us something special. And we're fasting together on Ramadan. How beautiful. Maybe we break our fast together. How beautiful. And then maybe we pray together in Taraweeh. How beautiful. And then maybe you fast on Monday. Maybe you fast on Thursday. Maybe you fast other days of the week. That's different, isn't it? It all has a different coloring. And then what about pilgrimage? What about Umrah? What about the visitation? What about sadaqah? Charity. Charity is one of the best things you can do for your health. Right? You want to be healthy. You want to have a healthy mind. Give charity. I remember a person who was very sick, and he called a sheikha, a woman sheikh, and he told her, pray for me. I'm sick. And she said, every day give $10 of sadaqah. This was in Chicago. She said, every day give $10 of sadaqah. And so what he did is that he had, there was a brother, he's an imam in Chicago, on the south side, and he said, I'm going to send you this money. I want you to just give it away, $10 every day. And that brother, whose name is Imam Medyun, the first day he went out, he saw a homeless man going through the garbage. And he went and said, "Brother, take this." And the man said, "God bless you, brother. God bless you, brother." That's what he said. So you don't think that that benefits Brother Medyun? You don't think that benefits the sick man? He got well. The sick man got well. He was giving charity like this for months. And you know, if you want to be healthy, give charity. Charity is so good, isn't it? And zakat. You know, we calculate our zakat like 2.5%. That's not easy. If you've got money in the bank, 2.5% is like, oh my God. That might be a big sum. But you know, you give that to the poor, especially like in certain countries. Like the Gambia, for example. Usually I pay zakat. And I pay it in the Gambia. And the people, they make dua for you. They cry. They've got something to eat. So what does that do to me? I love to do that, actually. I love to do that. You love to do that too. And you can do it wherever you want. You know, but this is special, isn't it? And this also enables us to free ourselves from the hold of that wealth. And that wealth, if it takes us, it doesn't let go, does it? And a lot of people can't pay zakat. They can't do it. It's like it's like some people are very wealthy, and yet they can't get up off of their wealth. I know a brother in India who has a wealthy family, and they borrowed from him lots of money, and he's very good, he gave it. And do you think they paid it back? Not a penny. They can't pay it back. Why? They're rich, but they just can't pay back their debt. Do you think they pay zakat? Not on your life. Not on your life. That's exactly what they need to do. So all of these acts of worship, they fix the heart. They bless the heart. They get the heart right, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, and they get rid of the disease. The person who goes into the fire, and may none of us be among that number, they are mahjub. This is what Allah tells us, isn't it? They're veiled from God. And that's because their hearts are veiled. And the biggest punishment to them that they could never sustain is for the veil to be removed. Because of the shame that they feel that, what did I do with my life? And that's why it's a mercy, in fact, that they're veiled, because they cannot be unveiled. That's one of the curses of the fire. That would destroy them absolutely. So we ask Allah to remove the veils of the heart. How are we coming for time? You're a really good audience. We've done a lot more than 3 minutes. You know, we've got to learn to talk in 3 minutes. I'm working on that. This is something that I find very challenging. And I've got people that are coaching me, like, we're going to get this down so that we've got a 3-minute, presentation. And then maybe another 3 minutes. But it's like, we've got these people out there that, like, they're not going to listen to you, from even the musicians. The 3-minute rule, right? It's like, after 3 minutes, you better change up and do something else. They'll get tired of your music after 3 minutes. So, mashallah, you've been sitting here for a long time. How are we coming for time? Nobody has the stop clock?
No.
How much time do we have?
30 minutes, inshallah.
30 minutes? And you didn't count the time that we were late with, did you? Okay, so
We started at 8:30.
yeah, so let's go on a little bit more. Should I do that, or do you want to ask questions?
No.
Okay, inshallah. So God comes between us and our hearts. Inna Allah wa'alamu anna Allah yahulu bayna al-mar'i wa qalbihi. Know that God comes between a person and his heart. Of course, that could be good. God can open the heart. but often it's not good. God comes between the heart of the person who doesn't cherish their hearts, and then they don't see. Most people are ignorant of their hearts, and that's why they're ignorant. And therefore they're ignorant of themselves. And we want to not be ignorant of ourselves. We want to know ourselves. We say you cannot know your Lord if you don't know yourself. So you are a treasure. You're an absolute treasure. You're a wonder. But that begins by knowing the secrets of the heart. God puts gaps between people and their hearts. And sometimes those gaps are unbridgeable. If we have access to our hearts, then we are well. And inshallah, may you have that. Maybe you do have that. Maybe you have it much better than others. But your heart will listen to you. It's trained, it's created to do that. And this is one of the things we have to learn to do well, is to tell our hearts, be silent. Usmut, ya qalbi. Be silent, my heart. That means cut off the hawajis and the wasawis. Cut off the insinuations of the lower ego. And cut off the insinuations of Satan. That's what we call silence of the heart. And when that happens, what's left? The angelic, the light, the intellect, pure intellect, the divine. Then your heart is a treasure. And you can tell your heart to do that. And it will obey. And it will obey better and better as you get access to your heart. So to sum up what we've said, the heart is the foundation of the Deen. It is the foundation of Islam. It's not just a spiritual topic. No, it's not. It is about the spirit. But it is the foundation of this Deen. The knowledge of the heart is essential. And as we said, the knowledge of the heart is fard ayn. It is an individual obligation so that we get our hearts right. So matters of the heart are the most important matters of all. They are second to none. What does it mean to know the heart? So this is what we will be talking about in the days ahead. We'll say a little bit about it tonight, and then we'll come back to it, inshallah, tomorrow. But the ultimate reality of the heart, like the heart of hearts, the metaphysical heart, the ultimate reality of the heart is the ultimate reality of the ruh. And of course, this is the greatest part of you, the spirit, your ruh. That will never die. It never will die. Your ruh will last forever. It was in world number 1. Here it is in world number 2. It will be there in world number 3. May it be felicitous. It will be resurrected and given a body in world 4. And then it goes to its destiny in world number 5. So when we're talking about the heart, ultimately we're talking about the ruh. And Allah says about the ruh, قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Say that the spirit pertains to the matter of my Lord. It's one of the great divine secrets. And what you were given of knowledge only very little. So do you comprehend the reality of the spirit? We don't. Therefore, do we comprehend the reality of the heart? We don't do that either. This heart is as amazing as the spirit is itself. And we're not going to master those secrets of the heart, because that's actually beyond us. But we don't have to do that. What we have to know is how the heart is structured, the heart of hearts, and therefore what makes it healthy and what makes it sick, what makes it strong and what makes it weak. That's what we have to know. And Al-Ghazali, Ibn Hamdun, many other great scholars, they say that this knowledge of the heart, as I've said now at least twice or three times, it is wajibun aini. It is an individual obligation, especially to know about the sicknesses of the heart, and especially to know what to do about them, so that you can get the heart right and keep it that way, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Ibn Ajiba says, may Allah be pleased with him, only the prophets sallallahu alayhim wasallam, only the prophets and the messengers were free of all defects in the hearts. This is at the essence of their isma, of their infallibility. So their hearts were perfect, their hearts were beautiful, their hearts were healthy. This is why they were the perfect human beings. But none of us is like that. Each of us, the people who are below the prophets, we have defects of the heart, and we have sicknesses of the heart, and we have to be vigilant about that until the last breath. We've got to watch our hearts carefully, and we can never take our hearts for granted. We can never say that, oh, I've done it now. No, you've never done it. The heart will always be tested again. It will always be exposed to new trials. As-Sanusi, al-Bilali, other great scholars, they tell us that, as I told you before, it is fard ayn to travel to a person who can help you with your heart to get it right, and to get rid of its faults, and to make it healthy. Why is that fard ayn? Because this is my salvation. This is the foundation of my Deen. And therefore we hope that in these nights that we are blessed with your company, in this beautiful, blessed place, in this great land, which we pray that God protects. You are great people. And may God bring the greatness in you out for the world's benefit, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So may these nights be nights of great rewards as we try to do this fard ayn bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. When you're concerned about your heart, and probably everybody here is, then it means your heart is alive. When you are concerned about your heart, it means your heart is alive. Another way that we know that your heart is alive is that you're concerned about other things. You're concerned about other people. You're concerned also about yourself. You don't want people to step on you. You don't want people to abuse you. You don't want people to take your property. You don't want people to mistreat your children. All of these natural responses that we have are signs that our hearts are alive and they are sound. And as you know, there are people who don't care. They don't care. They don't care about themselves. They don't care about the way they dress. You might even take something away from them and they might not get angry. Right? And that means the heart is not sound. Because these are responses that come out of a living heart. So, sorry?
It's time for questions.
Yes, that's it. So, we finished our first lesson. And thank you very much, and I hope that this was beneficial, and I hope that we get real benefit from this, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. So here we stop and here you begin. Do you have questions? Easy questions, not difficult questions. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I wanted to know more about the difference between Anwar al-Wusul and Anwar al-Dukhul.
So you want to know about Anwar al-Wusul and Anwar al-Dukhul. So they say that Anwar al-Wusul are the lights that come to you and come to your heart, but they don't go inside. And they don't go inside because they can't. Because my heart's full already of other things. Okay, but they do give benefit, like understanding and knowledge. And they enable me also to purify the heart. And then you have what they call Anwar al-Dukhul, and these are the lights like little birds that go in the heart and stay. And then you become radiant, and you have great wisdom, and you have basira, powerful inner eye, and maybe you understand things other people don't know. I came to Egypt in 1973. A lot of you weren't born then, were you? My first daughter was born in Du'i, right? In Mustashfa al-Katib, which was actually just a house in those days. And there were 4 other babies born. There were only 4 babies in the hospital that were born. And they were Arab babies, so they all had hair. Our babies don't have hair. The Caucasian babies usually don't have hair. So that was good because this is my daughter. This is my daughter. And her name was Iman. And it was a beautiful year. It was one of the best years of my life. And I was here for a whole year, mashallah. But this one person that I met in Egypt in those days, he was in probably the Azhar region, Imam Hussein part of Cairo. And he was pickpocketed. So he didn't have any money. And he didn't have a car. He was riding the bus. And he didn't have any money. He told me the story. And there was this old woman. You could imagine what she looks like, because she's an Egyptian woman. She's like matron. Egyptian matron. This is special. And she came up to him. And she said to him something like, "My son, you need money, don't you?" How did she know that? And she gave him the money for his bus fare. How did she know that? That's the heart. Of course, it's a mother's heart, but it is a pure heart. And these are the lights of the heart, so that she could look at him and see that this poor man, he doesn't have a penny. And then she gave him what he needed to take the bus. So this is what the lights do. They produce wonders in us, incredible qualities in us. And may Allah give us hearts like that. Ameen. When you obey God, you get a reward. And of course we think of the reward in terms of the hereafter. But one of the greatest rewards that come from acts of obedience is light. Light. Every time we obey Allah, we get light. And that light is precious. That light enables us to understand. It enables us to grow. And this is why we don't want to take one step forward and one step backward, or 2 forward and 1 backward, or 1 forward and 2 backward. We want just to go to 4 because you just want to be light, 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 light. You don't want to do anything to dissipate that light. And then that makes you more beautiful. It makes you able to understand. It makes you able to pray and to do other things that are really good. Next question. Thank you. That was a polite question. I could try to answer that question. And there is no such thing as a stupid question. But there are stupid answers. And I hope that I don't give any of those, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, you're a beautiful group of people, and this is a beautiful place to be. And it's one of the treasures to be able to come here. And I hope that we can do this all the time. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And may we serve this ummah. May we serve this ummah. This is a great ummah. Al-bidayatu majjalatu nihayat. Who said that? Ibn Ata'Allah, right? He's buried here in Cairo, you know that. And he says that in his munajat, he says that. Al-bidayat